Hey, good Monday morning, my friends. MLive Chief Meteorologist Mark Torregrossa here with the MLive Morning Weather Update on kind of a snowy, kind of greasy road type morning for a lot of us. I'll show you the radar here in just a second. It's a small snow, but sometimes I always say that first inch is the most dangerous. So be careful. The snow has ended in the western half of Lower Michigan, and it's moved into the eastern half of Lower Michigan. I looked at some of the cameras around the state, and definitely it looks a little bit on the snowy side in places. We'll look at that. Not a lot of snow activity this week on the way, so fairly quiet week, but a big milestone. 32 degrees possible in some places, maybe even 33, 34, 35. We'll look at that. Good morning, Connie Steiner. Good morning, Lawrence Kendersky. Good morning, Chip Shot 124 from Bloomfield Hills. Bloomfields. How has the cold, dry weather in sublimation of snow on the ground? Well, sublimation is when the snow goes from being snow to being vapor. It doesn't melt in between, so it kind of disappears. It's real hard to quantify that. We don't really have an instrument that I know of that does that. All right, so right now you see the snow shifting through the eastern half of the state, let's say. So we'll have that this morning. Now the modeling shows it's falling apart and shows it not too aggressive on the snowfall. This is a 1 inch, 2 inch type snow. Here's the radar forecast, and we'll go through the day. This is noon. So this model isn't right, and in fact, all of the models are not correct. And how do I know that? Is because at 9 o'clock, this is what it shows, and it does not depict what it currently looks like. So we just kind of take it with a grain of salt and say that over the next several hours, that snow will be moving through the eastern half of the state. And then as we go into the afternoon, nothing that looks to be widespread and accumulating snow, except for around the Traverse City area. The lake effect snow continues. It will be fairly weak, but you could, in Traverse City area, you could have 1 to 2 inches today, tonight, and then again tomorrow. So a couple of inches. This is tomorrow morning. You see that lake effect snow continuing around the Grand Traverse region, around Leelanau County, Benzie, Manistee County, and elsewhere fairly dry. All right, now, snowfall forecast. Again, remember this model is not showing the snowfall accurately on its radar forecast, so it could be off. And what I've seen is an inch or so of snow on the west side of the state, so I would say that's the same that's heading that way for Ann Arbor, Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, Saginaw Valley area, the thumb. And again, Traverse City area, it continues to pile up. We run this through tomorrow evening, and another 6 to 8 inches possible in places around Traverse City, and down to Cadillac, 3 to 5. So there's just no end in sight to the lake effect yet. Even though we are building some ice, it's not enough to shut the lake effect off just yet. All right, so here we go through the week. And like I said, pretty quiet for most of us on the snowfall. So this is tomorrow afternoon. I think we get to see some sunshine, albeit cold sunshine, but sunshine helps. And we're getting to the point where you'll notice the power of the sunshine. Maybe not so much today, February 2nd, but by the time we get to mid to late February, when the sun pops out, you notice a little warming effect. So we're getting there. My mom texted me and she said yesterday, just 59 days until spring. And then I woke up this morning and said, I think I'll use that. And then I did the math. I texted my mom back. Bad math, Mom. It's only 48 days until the beginning of spring. So this is Thursday, dry. And the weather maker this week, Thursday night into Friday morning, is another Arctic front. But notice Friday morning, notice the green on the radar forecast. That is rainfall. Now, we'll have to watch it because with such cold ground, it's hard to turn to rain unless you're really warm. And the other downside to this is it's an early morning high temperature on Friday and then colder temperatures. A quick blast, half of what we've had over the last couple of weekends. A Saturday cold where we could drop below zero again. Light winds on Saturday. And then here's Sunday. But next week we get into a southerly wind, and I'm going to show you that we could have some much milder temperatures. And it possibly could come with some additional moisture. Now, look at these temperatures. Today, balmy, right? Highs 25 to 27 degrees or so. Tomorrow, a setback in the warm-up, back down to highs only in the teens to lower 20s. Wednesday, same deal. And then Thursday, we start to inch toward the freezing mark in the far west, while the rest of us are in the 20s. Here's Friday. We get excited about that, don't we? 32 degrees maybe from Traverse City down the shoreline over to Saginaw, down to Flint, into Detroit and all of southern Michigan, and maybe 34 degrees. But remember, it's just a couple of hours, and it's in the morning on Friday, so it may not have a whole lot of melting power on the roads. We'll have to wait for next week for that. Show that to you in just a second. Saturday's cold, single digits and low teens. Sunday, we rebound some into the 20s. And then next week, it looks like we could have several days, 3 or 4 days, maybe at freezing or warmer. This is next Monday. This is next Tuesday. This is next Wednesday. And out into the future, everything's showing that we could warm pretty nicely, February 11th to 15th or so, and we could have some maybe 40s. Oh, look at this. If this were to work out, that would be a nice little break, wouldn't it? Because winter is not done. We know that. Winter is not done, but getting a break for 3 to 5 days would certainly be nice. What I'm going to show you here is what I'm seeing, and I've been seeing for the last 5 days, is a fairly strong warming trend for at least about a week in February. I don't know that it's something that lasts long, but it could. Remember, this winter was expected to have big ups and downs, and it has. We had some downs early in December. We had some big ups. I looked, we forgot. January 9th was 60 degrees in Detroit with a record high temperature. Last 2 weeks of January, just got some research from a fellow meteorologist that does a great job at analyzing past data, Gary Rizzo. He was a meteorologist with DTE for a long time, 20 plus years, I think. And he found that the last 2 weeks of January were colder than 1977. So we have had some definite cold weather, but now look at the European model in the ensemble mode. So we like that when we look out in the future, and if it shows something really demonstrative out in the future, that means all 51 members of the ensemble are kind of showing it. So what you're looking at is the surface temperature anomaly. Here's the weekend. There's the little Arctic blast and quickly moves off. But here's next week, Monday, Tuesday, February 10th, Wednesday, February 11th, Thursday, February 12th. What does something like that mean on this map? It means that we'll be about 10 degrees warmer than normal, and at that time the normal high is in the low 30s for the southern half of Michigan. So add 10 degrees and it gets you to 42. This is next Friday. Next Saturday, the 15th, the 16th, the 17th. So again, remember, we're way out there, and 51 averages have said it's going to be warmer than normal. That means most of the what we call the members of the ensemble, the 51 tweaks, are all averaging, it looks like, warmer than normal. Now, let's look at, you can kind of start to see it. Sometimes when they make the extended forecast at the Climate Prediction Center, they're a little slow to jump on the trend. They're kind of conservative. 6 to 10 day forecast is still for colder than normal temperatures. 8 to 14 day brings us to normal to above normal, February 9th to 15th, and I would expect to see that area grow in size and in intensity over the next couple of days. Here's the upper airflow. Watch the change. So there's a little disturbance, and then you'll see also our weekend cold right there. Not so much over Michigan, but over the Northeast, and we get what I'm calling sideswiped by it. And then you'll notice the change as we get into early next week. And this is getting closer, so on an ensemble, it's probably pretty good, and especially when a lot of these various models show this. But look at next Tuesday, southwesterly flow, and that would bring moisture too. And then this is Friday, Saturday, February 16th, 17th. Again, winter is not done, but it looks like the Arctic air may be done after this weekend. The Arctic meaning below zero temperatures. I think probably we will be done with that on Saturday, because if we go into a couple of week warming trend, it'll be hard to drop below zero in late February. It could happen, but it would be hard to do. So we're seeing just subtle signs. All I can tell you is if you're sick of winter here in Michigan, hang in there, folks. Time always wins, and spring always wins out. So be careful today. The roads are slick in the eastern side of the state. Will continue that way probably for the next couple of hours with the snow moving through. Not a lot, 1, maybe 2 inches in the higher spots. Like say the Irish Hills usually gets a little bit more snowfall than everywhere else around. Colder tomorrow, and then we'll all have a above freezing party perhaps on Friday. Thanks for joining me on the MLive Morning Weather Update. I'm MLive Chief Meteorologist Mark Torregrossa. Have yourselves a great Monday.